Hi, and welcome to Eminent Americans. I am Dan Oppenheimer, host of the podcast, father of the contemporary American intellectual scene. This is a special brief episode of the podcast. My guest today, I'm not sure if he's a guest, I guess he's more the interviewer, but also the guest is my son Gideon, who had to interview me for a paper that he did for school about someone interesting. He decided the interesting person he was going to write about was his father. So this is Gideon asked me a few questions about my life, about my writing, about what makes me interesting, and so on. I hope you enjoy. Peace. Gideon, welcome to Eminent Americans. I hereby anoint you an eminent American by the power vested in me as your father.
Thank you.
Why did you want to interview me?
Well, to be honest, because I'm doing a paper at school, and we choose someone to write about. I forget what type of person, but I chose you.
Okay. What are your questions?
What the book Exit Write about and the book Far From Respectable?
So Exit Right, the full title is Exit Right, The People Who Left the Left and Reshaped the American Century, is about prominent Americans in the 20th century who went from the left to the right of the political spectrum. So it's 6 chapters. Each of them is about a different person at different periods. It kind of starts at the beginning of the 20th century and kind of goes, in these sort of episodic ways to the end of the century. They're mostly writers and intellectuals, though one of them is a politician. And it's kind of charting their journey sometimes from before they were political, but then mostly from when they became involved in politics, kind of on the left, liberal end of things. And then they had a variety of experiences that ended up with them rejecting that worldview. And most of them, they don't all become conservative, but most of them end up becoming conservative. So it's about kind of American history. It's about left and right, but it's also about what it is kind of psychologically that can lead somebody both to be interested in being on the political left, and then ultimately, why do they reject that? So that's what Exit Right is about. And then my other book, Far From Respectable, Dave Hickey and His Art, is about well-known. I say well-known, most people don't know who he is, but particularly in the art world and in certain aspects of kind of the world of journalism, he was very well-known. He wrote a lot about art. He wrote a lot about culture, music, movies. He was a favorite writer of mine and ended up, when I was writing the book, kind of becoming a friend of mine. That was towards the end of his life. So it's not quite a biography. It's kind of a collection of essays about Dave and why he was important and what was so special and amazing about him. So those were my 2 books.
Where do you guys meet? And was it just a coincidence, or did you plan to meet each other?
So we didn't meet until I decided and got a contract to write the book. Or no, it was before I got the contract to write the book, but when I had the idea for it. We have a friend in common, a woman named Sarah Bird, who's also the person who helped get me the book contract, and she gave me Dave's info. And so I called him and talked to him. And actually, he was very suspicious of me at first because he thought I wanted to get money out of him or something, long story. So then once I was writing the book, we would talk on the phone a lot, and then actually took a trip out there. Do you remember that trip? Took a trip out to meet him. I met him in person once. We talked on the phone all the time, but kind of when I was working on the book, I arranged a weekend where we went out with you and Mom and Lisa.
I think I remember.
Do you remember we went out
the parking lot?
Maybe we went out to Santa Fe where he lived at the time, and we met him and his wife. And mostly it was just me hanging out with him, but we actually had lunch with him and his wife. I don't know if I have a picture of you with Dave. Anyway, so I met him once in person, and then otherwise I just talked to him a lot on the phone. At the end of his life, he was not in good physical health, so most of his contact with other people was on the phone. He liked calling people on the phone a lot. I became one of the people he would often call.
So what do you do in your job at the University of Texas?
So my title is Director of Public Affairs for the College of Liberal Arts. That means I'm responsible for all the sort of communications and marketing and public-facing stuff for the College of Liberal Arts. So we have a magazine we put out twice a year. There's a website that I'm kind of responsible for a lot of aspects of, and we put out press releases. We have social media accounts. We have newsletters we put out. So most of the things that have to do with communicating either with the world outside or with people who are part of our community, like students, staff, faculty, alumni, I'm kind of overall responsible. I have 7 or 8 people who work for me. They do most of the work, but I'm kind of the one who's responsible for making the big decisions and setting the strategic vision and things like that. So that's my job.
What makes you an interesting writer?
So I will say one or maybe two things about that. I think that I have spent a lot of time thinking very carefully and rigorously about what I think and what I believe and what I perceive in the outside world. I think most people get a lot of their opinions on those things, the things they think, the things they say. They kind of look around them and they get a lot of those ideas from the people in their community, the people who they admire. And I do that too. It's not that I'm starting from scratch. But most people don't subject a lot of those ideas to a lot of analysis and introspection. And I think before I started writing, but then in particular once I started writing, it's been very important to me to just subject so many of my ideas and thoughts to sort of analysis and to opposing ideas and to what people who disagree with me believe and to what my gut says about what's real. And so over time, I have refined more and more my perspective on the world. And I think that's a lot of what makes something interesting is somebody who has spent that kind of time really analyzing the world, analyzing themselves, analyzing and kind of revising their perspective to better align it with what they really believe and what they really perceive. That's one big part of it. And then the other big part of it is the capacity to take those thoughts as they come into your head and as they get refined in your head and convert them into language that you put on the page. So I think I'm kind of naturally talented at doing that with language, but then I've also spent many decades now kind of refining that capacity too. So it's kind of having interesting thoughts and then having the capacity to translate those interesting thoughts into language. And I'm interested in a lot, for whatever reason, I'm just interested in the world. I'm interested in what other people think and say. I'm interested in art. I'm interested in politics. I'm interested in history. I'm interested in fashion. And so you put all that together, and I think what comes out on the page when I write tends to be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Tell me about...
Isn't that interesting, Gideon?
It's pretty interesting. Tell me about why you got to write an article for the New York Times and what it was about.
So I had been in conversation with the Times off and on for a number of years about trying to write something for them. I had a personal connection to one of the editors there, which kind of got me in the door in terms of pitching them stories, sort of trying to sell them on various ideas. I've written a lot for other magazines, so I'm kind of the kind of person they might publish something by. So I had been in conversation with them. I had actually written something for them once. It successfully sold them a pitch, but then they decided not to publish it. So then I'd gone back and, come up with various other ideas. And the one that they finally accepted and then ended up publishing was, I had this very unique experience, which you know about, where Mom and I had the opportunity to do 8 sessions of couples therapy with this very well-known in the therapy world guy named Terry Real, who's an exceptionally good therapist and somebody Mom and I had read his book, and we were sort of interested in his theories. We'd watch videos of him doing therapy with people. He's very good. And he's also very, very expensive because he's so good and well-known. He's more expensive sort of to do it privately than we would have been willing to pay, but he does a lot of training of other therapists and coaches. And for his training, he needs to find couples who are willing to do therapy with him on Zoom while a bunch of his trainees are watching. And in exchange for that, he'll do very low cost or free therapy. So mom got an email because she's a therapist that he was looking for couples who were interested in doing that. And we volunteered. We had to do a video where we explained why we would be a good couple for him. And he ended up selecting us. And so we did these 8 sessions, which were on Zoom. And because he's doing it for his training, they also recorded the sessions. So then we asked if we could have access. So we had these recordings. We had literally what we had done in the therapy. And I pitched the idea. I said, I want to write about him because he's interesting, but then I wanted to also write about the therapy that we did. And then they said yes. So then that was the article that I wrote, which did very, very well for the New York Times. It got something like 1.5 million views.
That's a lot of...
Yeah, it did well. It wasn't like the highest, but it did very well for them. People were interested.
I thought it was funny how, it said when they're the headline or something, how I learned that the problem in my marriage was me.
I had very mixed feelings about that headline. I think initially they started with a different headline, but that was the one that was getting the most clicks. And I guess I wanted the story to get the most clicks. It's not really, it makes it sound like what I realized was that I was the problem, not Mom. What it really meant is that I had to take responsibility for the problems in our relationship, in our marriage that were mine. And maybe I had to take more responsibility for that, because certainly some of the problems that I had control over were the ones that came from me. But yeah, that was an uncomfortable title, but it was one that I agreed to.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting article.
Yeah.
I'll definitely read it soon.
Yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to become a writer?
I really decided after I was already in graduate school to become a writer. So obviously when I chose to go to graduate school to become a writer, it was something I thought I wanted to do, or thought maybe I wanted to do. But I don't think it was until I was in graduate school for 3 years and spending all that time writing and being around other writers and other people who wanted to be writers, and just meeting people who are successful as writers, and kind of, falling in love with the idea of being a writer and the romance of being a writer. That at some point along the way of that, I just decided in my heart kind of that was what I wanted to be. And it didn't turn out, I am a writer. It didn't turn out that I'm a writer in the way that I imagined I would be. I imagined back then that writing was how I'd make a living, and I'd be able to support myself. And if I had a family someday, then when writing, that didn't turn out to be the case. I ended up having this career in university communications. That's kind of how I make my living and help support our family. But I have been able to keep writing along the way and write some books. And Mom and I are now working on another book, and I've written lots of articles. So yeah, that's when I decided.
That's all I got for you.
Well, thanks for asking me the good questions.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on your podcast, and for all those eminent American fans out there. Thank you so much for listening to his podcast. Now he has over 1,000.
2,000.
2,000?
2,000.
2,000. Is it followers or subscribers?
Subscribers.
Yeah, over 2,000 subscribers. Yeah, best interviewer and writer I know. But yeah.
Will you say something super cute about me as my son?
Something super cute?
Yeah.
Okay. Something I like is that whenever Mom's gone on a trip, you spoil me and Asa a lot.
Mom's right there. Don't tell her. All right. Love you, Gideon. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
You should thank me for doing this. I'm doing it for your podcast.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. We're out. Say goodbye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of Eminent Americans. Big thanks to my editor, producer extraordinaire, Robert Scaramuccia. Big thanks as well to Alec Owensworth of Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah, for letting us use his music for our intro and outro. If you liked what you heard, and I imagine you did, if you've made it this deep into the episode, then please rate us on whatever the relevant podcasting platform is. And if you have any questions or comments, email me at djops@gmail.com. That's djopps@gmail.com. I promise to respond at least until the faraway and probably mythical day when I have such a vast audience that I can't in good conscience respond to all the emails while still upholding my responsibility to my loved ones. Have a great day.